No, you're good.
Okay, and do we
Sorry
have
about
audio
that,
now
everyone.
on YouTube? Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, now we're totally simulcasting. Finally, we got the YouTube stream working. For some reason, the audio decided to cut out and die on us, but it's working now. So welcome to this live stream feed. The Facebook folks have been watching for a few minutes, but apparently everything's working on both sides here. If if my eyes are tracking strangely, it's because I've got two different cameras to look into. So bear with us on that. And of course, I'm sorry, Facebook folks, as we had the stream running and then we had to take it down and then bring it back up to get the audio working, but obviously you want to hear what's going on. So welcome to this live Q&A session. Batteries, here you go. Batteries for Aaron.
Tell them the audio is going to go off for just 1 second.
Yeah, the audio is going to blip on YouTube here for a minute while we change batteries in the receiving unit. Technical stuff.
The different chocolate.
Okay.
Chocolate
Okay.
before, so.
How is the audio running now, Aaron? Okay, so the question on Facebook was ice cream flavors in the 18th century. Now, obviously, we did a Parmesan ice cream. There, you'll find some other flavors. I think you'll find some citrusy flavors. Strawberry was one that Kevin mentioned. Chocolate, another one that's crazy. This one is the one that comes up and everybody goes, oh yeah. Oyster. No, was it oyster? Yes, oyster ice cream. I cannot imagine oyster ice cream. Maybe we'll have to try that. That one's probably next up on the next ice cream episode we do. Oyster ice cream. Sounds wonderful. Have any other questions out there?
Let's see. What time period do you normally role play or reenact? Pizza in the 18th century. Big question over and over again.
Yeah, pizza in the 18th century. If you do research on pizza, you'll find that, I mean, kind of what we consider pizza is definitely a 20th century thing. You'll find sort of Italian street food with a very simple flat bread and sort of an oil and a few herbs. Kind of goes back definitely into the 19th century. It may go back earlier into the 18th century and possibly even earlier than that. I haven't, read about that recently, so it's not like right up here in my head, but it's definitely a specifically Italian thing. So I don't think you're going to find that kind of spreading out into, say, North America or into England in that 18th century context. I don't think you're really going to see that happening until you get to probably early 20th century and even the second half of that century when that really starts to come into fruition. But obviously you're going to have street food and Italian street food earlier on. And the question is exactly when does that pour into these later, when does that spread into these other cultures and countries?
1 sec. Can you kind of move your mic? It's kind of rubbing up on you.
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of.
Do people in the 18th century have cats for pets?
Cats for pets. Let me see if I can fix my audio. That's going to be tricky. Is that better?
Yeah, a little better.
Okay, we'll try that there. I'll stop rubbing the microphone. Cats in the 18th century. You'll find cats in paintings in kitchens very, very frequently in the 18th century. So cats are going to be a common pet you find showing up in art. Now, whether they're just in the kitchen because they're after rodents and other things, whether or not they're actually, as common a family pet as you would find in, nowadays, I don't think probably so much. But they definitely had them in the house. It was a common animal to be around.
What kind of fabrics were used in the 18th century for clothing?
Fabrics in the 18th century for clothing. Oh, I need to be louder. Okay. I know it's tricky. I'm trying to fight the audio with all these different things going on. Fabrics in the 18th century. Linens were a real common fabric that's showing up in the 18th century, and that's what we kind of all think. People are home, doing home weaving and spinning. Linen is one of those big fabrics. But other fabrics show up in the 18th century, and very common, maybe for higher class people, silks. You're always, silks were one of those expensive kinds of things. Here's a silk necktie here. And if you could afford silk, you would have silk, and it would say that you probably had a little bit more money, even if you only purchased a little bit of silk, a silk ribbon or silk neckerchief or something else. Cottons were also common, and you'll see those even early. You might think cotton is a 19th century thing, but you're going to find cottons in the 18th century and fairly common. Most of these other kind of natural fibers, you're going to find some hemp being used as fabrics, and you'll find mixes of these two things too. You'll find cotton and linen being put together as a fabric. Those are the main ones you're going to see most often, these natural fibers. Wool, obviously, forget that one. But wool fabrics, again, very, very common, especially like an English thing. I'll stop there. There's so many wonderful fabric variations, amazing colors that you're going to find in 18th century examples. So there's a lot of amazing fabrics that you'll find. And there are some great resources out there where you can actually see sample books of all these fabrics, the kind of weave they had, patterns they had. They were weaving patterns, printing patterns. A lot of different things available. It wasn't just everybody was wearing brown or gray. It was very colorful, lots of fabrics.
What kind of candy did people make in the 18th century?
Candy. You will find certainly a lot of candies and candied things where they would take different kinds of fruits or vegetable things, and they would candy them, like candied orange peel and candied, we were talking about candied angelica the other day. But is that a 19th century thing, Kevin?
Candied angelica?
Yeah.
You can find that in 18th century.
Okay, you'll find that in 18th century too. They did make some other kinds of candies, maybe not so much kind of what we think of as candies, but certainly even the clear cakes are probably a kind of candy. We talked about clear cake things a couple of Q&As ago, maybe 3 or 4 Q&As ago. So yeah, certainly candied-like things.
Here's a question that you probably don't have an answer for, but maybe a comment.
Sure.
What are some common German recipes from the 18th century?
Common German recipes from the 18th century. And I still need to be louder for Facebook. You know what? We were just at the ALFAM conference, and I'll talk about that a little bit more later. We were just at the ALFAM conference. I didn't get to go to the session, but Kevin was at a session where some folks, they were from folks down at the old Salem site down in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Amazing site. If you're close to there, make sure to go and see it. They're working on a cookbook that has translations of 18th century German recipes. And, those are much tougher, especially for me. I don't read German, especially 18th century Low German like these cookbooks. So they're working on a project where they're translating these, and we hope to bring you some of those recipes in the near future. Recipes that are definitely different than the recipes that we're used to doing on this channel. So there's going to be some fun stuff in that set of recipes. So stay tuned as we work on those things. We'll probably be working with those folks, connecting up. Aaron?
Did they have toothpaste back then?
Toothpaste in the 18th century. Ryan, did you see some of the toothpaste stuff in a couple of books I gave you?
I did, but I don't remember.
I am just positive that there are some paste. I don't know if paste is the word, but tooth powders. Yeah, tooth powder recipes in some of the cookbooks. The cookbooks in the 18th century, so many of them, had the back end of them filled with medicinal and sort of household recipes. So you'll find recipes, and occasionally you'll find some of these sort of cosmetic kind of recipes in these cookbooks. I haven't read the tooth powder one recently, but yes, you're going to find those sorts of things in cookbooks in the 18th century. How popular were they? Were people brushing their teeth a lot? They had toothbrushes. I'm just not sure how popular they were with just regular folks or higher class things. Anybody else?
Well,
Everybody's
There's so many.
head down.
yeah.
So many questions.
Let me talk a little bit about the Alfam conference because I just mentioned it with the Winston-Salem folks. We were just this last weekend. We went and we did a couple of sessions, actually 3 different, 2 workshops and a session there at the Alfam conference. Alfam is an organization that is living history sites inside the United States and Canada too, where they get together and kind of put their heads together on notes, and they have an organization and they all work together. We belong to Alfam, and we went to the conference. We did a workshop on building an earthen oven. So like you've probably seen in some of our videos, we built an earthen oven on one day. We fired it up and we got it all dried out, and the next day we did some baking in that. So we had about 20 or 30 folks involved in that session. I want to thank all those guys that were involved in that workshop. They did all the mud stomping. I didn't have to do that part of it. It was wonderful. And we baked in the oven the next day. Kevin brought some recipes, and those guys got involved. Some of the people inside the session were baking. We did baked bread. We did a bread and butter pudding, which you got to have. It's just totally incredible. And we did a Welsh rabbit. And you can, if you dig around on our channel, you can find a Welsh rabbit recipe. And we did a white pot episode, I think second season, which is real simple, or similar to the bread and butter pudding. And do we have pictures of that? Are they rolling right now? Okay, so you're seeing some of those pictures from the workshop. And afterwards, after the session was over, we had a family come and visit us from the East Coast. Eli, Elizabeth, and the kids came, and we spent a long time talking to them. We had a wonderful time. So I want to thank everyone that came to the oven building sessions and the baking session, and of course thank Eli and Elizabeth for coming visiting with us. We had such a tremendous time with them, and it was a great time. So shout out to them. We also did a YouTube session the day after that, so that was great. It was amazing.
Real quick.
Okay. Yeah.
Somebody wanted to know what Alfam is. Did you explain that at all?
Alfam. Agricultural living history organizations. Imagine any sort of living history historic site that deals with outdoor museums, agriculture museums, and they getting together with an overall organization where they can get together and connect up with that. So that the Alfam thing, it's alhfam.org. You can check out the website if you're interested in that. A lot of different organizations, and some amazingly, the depth of knowledge right there in the room in that whole organization is incredible. And a lot of the historic sites that we've gone to belong to that organization. So it's one of those great ways you can connect with other folks that are doing the same kind of thing as we do.
Here's a viewer who asks, are there blacksmiths at reenacting events? I have a forge, and I'm thinking about trying if there is a reenacting, or if this happens at events.
So the question is blacksmithing at historic events. Somebody who's connected with has a forge and they're doing some blacksmithing. There's a lot of blacksmith folks that show up at events. It's one of the things that's most interesting to the public. They love watching that and learning about that. So yes, if you're interested in doing blacksmithing at living history events and sites, it's a great it is one of those skills and trades going on in the 18th century that was common every place. So every event should have a blacksmith there or multiple blacksmiths. It is a great thing to show. Yep.
Someone is asking if that is a keg of nutmeg behind you.
Yeah, that full of nutmeg. Well, it was full until I ate it like halfway down, but yeah, it's full back there. of nutmeg, and it's good stuff too. Let me read off a couple questions that we grabbed up from this week. This was an interesting question. I wasn't exactly sure to how to answer it because there are multiple answers. Mr. Townsend, I've got what I think is a great idea for a video. Hopefully it hasn't been done yet. What was the most valuable item in a household back then? I was thinking a Kentucky rifle or any rifle. It depends on the household, obviously, doesn't it? If you're on the frontier, you may have walked out to this spot and built a house out of nothing. And many people did that. I mean, just basically what they had on their back or on their pack horse. And so in that setting, definitely they probably got a firearm, and that is the most expensive tool that they have with them. It might be a rifle, it might be a musket, but still, that's probably the most complicated and expensive tool they have with them. But if you're out east and you're in town, you may not even have a firearm, and so something else is going to be the most expensive thing in your house. Maybe it's a clock. Maybe it's your pocket watch that you have in your pocket, or some other kind of thing. There's a lot of variation once you get into a real civilized setting. So there's a lot of different answers for that.
This person's wondering what your favorite video that you've done is.
My favorite video. Whew. Yeah, we've done a lot of videos, and a lot of the cooking videos are a lot of fun to do. And sometimes when we start those out, you never know what's going to happen with the recipe, especially when we kind of do them, off the cuff. Even the parched corn ones, kind of like, hey, let's just do this. And so those can be a lot of fun because you're learning and doing the video at the same time. You kind of pack those two things together. We had, if I was going to say fun, then they're probably the videos that most people don't get to see anymore. The first 3 or 4 years of our channel, we made a lot of narrative kind of videos and videos that were almost skits. And then, I won't even mention Crimson Bond. We did the zombie video. You can still find that. We had a heck of a time, a lot of fun doing the zombie videos. And probably the most fun that you can still find on the channel is the Ever So Slightly Green video. So if you want to go back, it's way back there. It's like 5 years ago. But that was one of those kind of quick, it was a sale video, but we put a lot of effort into it. We had a lot of fun with Ever So Slightly Green. Maybe somebody will find a link and put it down in the description section there or in the comments so you can go see Ever So Slightly Green. It's not one we talk about very often. Obviously, it's for a sale that doesn't run anymore. But those were a lot of fun. But I have fun with every video. I don't know what it is, but they kind of give me energy. Maybe I just get excited when it's time to do a video. So I have a lot of fun with all our videos.
Hey, John, shout out to Sarah Rich Creek. She mentioned, by the way, that Conner Prairie's looking for blacksmiths right now.
There we go. Sarah Rich Creek is head of the foodways down at Conner Prairie. And hey, Sarah. And she says they are looking for blacksmiths down at Conner Prairie. So if you're in that central Indiana area and you're interested in connecting up on that, check with Conner Prairie. Great folks to work with down at Conner Prairie. Aaron.
Somebody was asking about the adpocalypse, if it affected our channel.
The adpocalypse.
Good time to talk to everyone on YouTube.
Yeah, folks are talking about the I can't even say it right. There, adpocalypse. He said it right. That happened on YouTube, where different people or different companies stopped advertising on YouTube, and it kind of connects up with that whole concept of what's going on with the algorithm within YouTube. I mean, YouTube has been adjusting their algorithm. They've been I think now it's basically part of a neural network. It's this constantly changing thing that you really can't track, and it's changing a lot of channels and the viewership on the channels. Depending on, what's really happening is whether or not folks' videos are actually showing up in the suggested column of the channel, and we've seen some of our views drop, but really we don't put ads on our channel, so it doesn't really affect us as much. But it may make it trickier for you to find our videos at times, and you maybe in the past have noticed it's like, wow, they used to have 10 or 12 videos in the side column, and now when I'm watching one of their videos, there's only 1 or 2. Yeah, that's YouTube doing their thing. They are trying to make the audience happy. It may not always work, but I can't complain. YouTube is an amazing platform. They do an incredible service for us, giving you this service and this service to us for free. So I might want to complain, but I don't want to complain. It's really a great place.
1 second before you do that, can you twist your mic back up? It keeps falling. It sounded a little muffled.
I got to change my mic.
There, much
Hold on.
Much better.
Hey, John.
Yes.
Russ Miller wants to know if we've ever thought about doing a podcast.
Russ Miller is interested in the concept of podcasts. Well, it turns out that we are working on the concept of a podcast. We have been sort of, how do we do a podcast with all the other things that we're doing all the time? But the idea of a podcast is incredible, and we are working on some concepts about podcasting. We connect with, just like at the ALFAM conference, we probably talked to 20 people within a 24-hour period that would be amazing guests, whether they're on YouTube or whether they're on a podcast, and we would love to be able to work that out. But it all has to do with how much time we have to devote to this thing. Do you guys have anything to say about that? I got 3 other people in the room here. Okay, so let me say, I've got people downstairs watching the channel and taking out comments that shouldn't be there. Aaron's over here, our video editor. Kevin, the director, is over here watching and reading out comments. And Ryan, that does social media, is right here. And so obviously, I look distracted. It's because I got 3 different people talking to me. Anybody want to say anything about podcasting?
Oh, we want to do it.
We want to do it so bad. This guy's going to come in and fix it. He's going to fix it.
This is bad.
I can't see it.
Okay, so while you're fixing your mic, I'm going to read another question for you.
Go for it.
Okay. Marcel is asking, my sister is interested in doing something as a historical soldier, but as a female, she's worried it wouldn't be allowed because it's not historically accurate.
That was Marcel?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The question is, Marcel wants to know, his sister is interested in reenacting, specifically military reenacting, but she's a female. Is that a problem? And I would say that the majority of units that I know of allow that sort of thing. It's not a problem. A lot of units don't have an issue with that. Dressing, if you take a female and you dress them up as a soldier, some of them go to different extents to make that work for them. I mean, I've seen just like facial hair. It's like they're a short man, and it's okay. Most units do not have a problem with that, but every military unit is different. They all belong to different organizations, and they all have different kinds of rules. So, it might work. It just depends on the kind of unit you want to work with. You ask them, and they expect that sort of question. It's not something out of the ordinary.
Well, somebody loves making mushroom ketchup and wonders, is that a big seller for Townsend's? Is mushroom ketchup just flying off the shelves?
Mushroom ketchup was so good, and I was so excited when we were able to find the product to be able to offer to people, because not everybody has a chance to make it themselves, especially out in the campfire like we did it, which makes a really good mushroom ketchup. I think it's especially good when you make it over the fire. Don't tell anybody, it's the secret. But yes, we sell a commercial mushroom ketchup that's made in the UK, and it does sell quite well. A lot of people really enjoy it. It's fun to have around. I put it on just about everything. Eggs and meats, and well, other than dessert, I put mushroom ketchup on it. I enjoy it a lot. We would love to be able to figure out how to make have a version that is sort of bottled here in the United States. So we it's just one more of those crazy ideas that we got.
Lisa wants to know, have you been to Martin Station lately, shooting any interviews? And do you plan on posting them soon? I think she knows.
You think she knows? Okay. Lisa, she asked about Martin Station. Have I been there recently? And do I have any videos to release? The answer is yes. And yes, maybe not soon. We haven't started editing those. I don't know exactly where they're at in the lineup of videos. We still have some we haven't released from last year when we shot stuff at Martin Station. It is, how do I look, right? Aaron's just asked. I'm not paying attention to him. I had a lot of fun. I just went by myself. Just Ivy and I went to Martin Station this year. So I was only able to do, I think, 3 to 4 interviews. One of them I know. Did we already do Gary Carroll's? Or is it just ready?
It's
Okay, so there's one that's mostly ready. There's a couple other we did. Martin Station is an amazing place. If you're ever close to that sort of real Western Virginia area and you want to go, it's a beautiful spot with the mountains and the fort there, and it's a great set of people, wonderful location, and the events are amazing. If you get a chance, go. Hopefully in the next couple of weeks or month or so, we will have some Martin Station videos for you to watch. One's from last year, one's from this year. Yes.
I've got a lot of beer and whiskey related questions. Can you share some of what we just learned at Alfam about alcohol in the 18th century?
Ooh. I really, this is like a super podcast. We could probably spot, who is it? Tom Kelleher?
Yeah.
Tom Kelleher at Old Sturbridge Village did this great seminar on taverns in the 18th century. It would be such a great podcast. We talked to him about that, interacting together. They were excited about that. But he talked about, this is New England specific, but the idea of taverns and what kind of things they were drinking in the 18th century. And of course we think beer, especially when you read about English things. But apparently beer was really popular in England, but wasn't so popular in North America at the time period. And what Americans were really drinking was rum. I mean, not even whiskey, but rum that was coming in from the West Indies. And they had many different ways they would treat that, turning it into rum punch and some other things. So beer was still used and still made maybe when you couldn't get what you wanted, which was rum, and you would use beer specifically for situations like stocking ships with beverages. So the water went bad, but you would put beer in the barrels and ship that out with your ships. So they still made beer, but not necessarily so much for standard home use. Is that enough, Ryan? Was there more? There was so much. I mean, it was an hour just jam-packed with incredible content. So hopefully we'll be able to, bring some of that to you in the future.
Hey, John.
Yeah.
Heaven Hammer is asking, I'd like to know what kind of recipes you'd expect in winter during the 18th century if there are no vegetables available. Fish, meat, would it be imported?
Heaven Hammer asks about winter foods and specifically what's going on with vegetables. And, they worked pretty hard at drying things, pickling things when winter came, and it would be harder to get a hold of those greens. So they did specifically look for things that would bring some of that fare in, and so you just didn't have meat and bread. Now, of course, I mean, the question is really broad because we're talking about a really broad time period and a really broad kind of locations, whether it's England or North America. And so, I mean, every place is going to be a little bit different and to have different specific things that they're bringing in. But if you're trying to bring those greens and those natural things in, they have to be pickled, they have to be brined, they have to be dried. There are a few other things you can do with them, but not much. If you're in a very, very civilized area, they did have, say back in England, they did have greenhouses. And if you had a little bit more money, you might have some of these forced vegetables coming in the wintertime so that you could have them fresh. But, that's only just in kind of big city areas. Did I cover enough of that, or did you have any specific ideas?
Nope.
Okay, sauerkraut's another one of those things. If you're, maybe if you're in a more of a Germanic spot, that's another one of those ways to bring greens into your winter. It's not very green, but into your winter eating.
A lot of people asking about Ivy. Is she going to be cooking anytime soon, and also is she into reenacting?
Ivy loves it. She went down to Martin Station and she had such a good time. In fact, she was gone most of the time. It can be that way at reenactments, and you bring kids and they just like, pew, they're gone. They're having fun playing with each other or, with a specific craftsman. Ivy hung around with Carol Jarbeau and doing dyeing the whole time, and she had a lot of fun at Martin Station. Kids love going to events and participating. It is such a great way. I do not have anything right up on the schedule for Cooking with Ivy, but I'll do my best to bring Ivy in an episode soon.
On that point, what sort of games did kids play in the 18th century?
That one's tough to answer right off the top of my head, but you can find examples of kids playing games in very simple kids illustrations. So in the 18th century, they had little chap books, little books to learn your ABCs. And a lot of times those have little pictures, and some of them will show you the toys and the games that the kids were playing in the 18th century and some simple illustrations for that. So tops, hoops and sticks, if you've ever seen that, where kids are running hoops down the road with a stick, marbles, but most of the time it's very simple. I mean, kids really, kids will play with cardboard boxes and sticks and cans and anything. You don't need to make toys for kids. They will find anything to turn into a toy, and that's what's going on in the 18th century part of the time. It's like, hey, let's go play, we're fishing, and they get a long stick and some string, and they're playing games. Kids, they're always, if you give them free time, they're going to go, they're going to have fun. So you can see some of those examples of kids' games in the 18th century. It's quiet in here. You want me to read another one?
There's so many.
Okay, let me talk about parched corn for just a minute. And where are we at, guys, time-wise?
It's like 4.
Yeah, actually, we've had a number of people ask about Native American cuisine.
Okay.
Speaking of that topic.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Here's a question that came in on the YouTube channel, specifically about the parched corn episode. I love the way this one's worded. I mean, some people might. Anyway, here's the question or comment. You think you overcooked it? Question mark. You maybe burnt it when you parched it. Yeah, okay. That's the deal with the parched corn episode. That was one where I specifically did not do a lot of prep work on that. I wanted to come into these videos sometimes as the newbie, as the guy who hasn't done this for 10 years, because I want you to be able to think that way for yourself, that you can do these things without being an expert. And sometimes they don't work out perfectly, and we have to do it again and do it again. And sometime soon, I want to revisit parched corn, spend a little bit more time, and come to it with more experience. But I don't want you to feel like that you can't do these recipes, that you need to spend a month or a year researching something. Sometimes you read about it and you say, I just have to go out and try it. And so, I overcooked it. And guess what? Everyone shared with me that in the comment section. And that's, again, one of the powerful things about YouTube. I don't have to come to you as an expert like I might have to on television, where, we spent $50,000, $100,000 making this episode, so everything has to be perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect here. And I can experiment right on screen, just like, these episodes, even this Q&A. It's like, I'm messing with the technical doesn't have to be perfect. That's the power of what's happening here. And even with the parched corn episode, that's the power of that episode. I had fun. I did the thing. It was an experiment, and I learned from it, and we can all learn from it, and people can share, and we can get better at it. I can't wait to try parched corn again and not burn it so badly. It's like I needed to take more time. And that can be hard to do in a video when you're like, I'm trying to get this video done. I have to hurry up. Because it takes a long time to produce a 5-minute video. We spent 6-8 hours doing 2 episodes that were 12 minutes long when they get done. It takes a lot of time, but it is a lot of fun, and we learn a lot, and hopefully you learn a lot at the same time.
I had a question about food sickness prevalency in the 18th century.
Yeah, I saw a question or a comment come through recently too about whether or not eating these strange things makes me sick, or whether people in the 18th century or other time periods got sick and ill from eating food. And people don't talk about it as much. You don't see that necessarily written a lot about in the 18th century, because I think people just expected to get sick quite often, and they didn't know what was doing it necessarily. Obviously they didn't have germ theory. They didn't know that there were little unseen things living in the food. And so they only understood them getting sick by experience and trial and error. You definitely find people talking about getting sick, and even in the Private Yankee Doodle book, he talks about eating an ox's milt, and then he got really, really sick, and he was throwing up, and he wished he hadn't eaten, even though he was super, super hungry. So certainly there are times and when people are talking about that food was really bad, it made them sick. Definitely.
A lot of people asking about Reddit AMA.
Wow, Reddit AMA. Guys, I am a super Reddit newbie. I'm so busy doing what we do here that I don't get a chance to go and experience a lot of Reddit. It looks like an amazing community and so many things going on that it sounds like fun, but I need someone to hold my hand. How does this work? So we'll see. If I can find someone to hold my hand on this process, we'll try it. We'll try it.
Hey, Ethan is asking, what were some common jobs in the day?
Common jobs in the, wow. I mean, what wasn't a common job? Maybe we should take this into a direction like what was common in the 18th century that you don't find today. Or maybe the interesting analogs. So imagine truck drivers in the 18th or today, right? A lot of people have to drive trucks over the road, deliver all these materials. They had the same thing in the 18th century, whether it's voyageurs with, in canoes, taking goods out and coming back with furs. But imagine the number of guys that have to drive wagons in the 18th century. Wagoners. Lots and lots of guys delivering things, and that was their job, hauling things in wagons, going all over, whether it's, whatever country. Can you imagine? That would have been a pretty tough job, and there's some interesting stories that you find about guys driving wagons. Other common ones, boy, there's so many. I'm not sure I can pop some off the top of my head. What are you thinking, Kevin?
Well, I'm just thinking of the whole process of learning a trade, for instance. Right,
learning a trade is, we're probably at least somewhat familiar with this whole concept of people that learn a trade through apprenticeships. And I am sorry that more of our learning isn't done that way with trades. Although I'm not sure what it necessarily would look like in today's world, but imagine spending 5 or 6 years studying as a young person, maybe from 12 to 18, learning a trade, and then you're all trained up and ready to go. There's so many. Boy, that's a big question. I'll have to think about that one for a while. 1 or 2 more, and then we'll wrap this guy up.
We are planning a trip to the store next month. Is there any chance we will see you there? I'm quite often around in the store when the store's open. If there's somebody, there's always somebody can answer the door at the store.
if you ask, they'll try to run back and find me so I can come out. So there's a pretty good chance you'll find me unless I'm off shooting a video or I happen to be at a site or off location. It does sometimes happen, but right now I don't have anything scheduled just coming right up. So in the next month or two, quite likely you'll be able to find me if you come to the store. Are we good? Okay, let's wrap this up. Man, this has been great. So much activity on YouTube and on Facebook. It's exciting to be able to come and kind of do these live sessions. We'll try to do it more often, but wow, this is tricky. It's normally when we do a Q&A, it can be just me and a cameraman, and we get a chance to edit it. When we do it like this, we have to have all these people prepped and ready to go all at the same time. And of course, we got to make the technical things work. But a lot of fun. I want to thank you for the amazing support. When you're watching our videos, you're commenting on videos, you're sharing our videos. I talked just a little bit about YouTube and adpocalypse and all that. What we do here on this channel is difficult. It doesn't fit. Nobody can put us in a box. It's not like we fit in other places. It can be hard to compete in YouTube land. When you interact with our channel and you specifically share our videos, you comment on them, that means a lot. I mean, it really helps spread the word about James Townsend's and what we do on this channel here. It is important that you support us in that way. So I really want to thank you guys for doing that. And specifically, all you people that support us monetarily, whether you're purchasing things on our website or you support us just directly on Patreon, another tremendous way to support what we do in making videos. I love going out to sites. I love doing the cooking videos. I really get, again, I mentioned it earlier, so much energy from doing the videos. So I want to thank you for coming along, sharing in what we do, interacting. It is a pleasure to work with everyone out there. Thank you so much for watching today.